heroin in our community. I believe I've heard Mr. Moore say on TV that year before last we only had 5 deaths. This past year we've had 35 deaths from heroin, and it seems to be a growing problem, and it's cutting across all socioeconomic levels. So we thought we would just have this little forum and give people an opportunity to know a little bit more about it and what they recommend that we'll be able to do. So tonight we have with us District Attorney Hillar Moore, our Coroner, Dr. Beau Clark, and our Senator Dan Claytor. And Mr. Moore, if you'll step over here, the video camera will be able to get you. And
good. Well, I'm glad I get to go first, and I don't have to follow Dan and Dr. Clark. But first of all, appreciate the opportunity to come here, and second, appreciate the opportunity to be with 2 people who I feel are extremely hard workers, and are doing the job for the right reason and making the right decisions for the right reason, and not just doing it for themselves or for anything else. And these 2 guys work hard, work very hard. And without them, we really can't do our job. The coroner has such a good office now compared to the coroner's office that we've had in the past. All good friends, but this guy has really modernized his coroner's office that we've never seen before. And eventually turns into what happens in the courtroom. We can see the difference. Dan knows the system from all the different sides, and now helps us really with our legislation. Whenever we need something, we feel there's a problem, Dan's the first person that we go to, and he gets it done. And so I really appreciate them doing what they do. Heroin is a really big issue for us right now. You heard the differences in the deaths, 35, and I think the doctor will tell you about how many deaths are suspected this year already. Heroin is so cheap right now, and it's replacing the pills. We started the prescription monitoring program, and it's made it harder for kids to get pills because of the monitoring program we have. And now these kids have turned to heroin, which is the real thing compared to some synthetic drugs. And they take the heroin, they cut it maybe 4 different ways. So for 25 bucks, you may get 4 hits, but you don't know what you're getting. You don't know how pure it is, how weak it is, but the stuff that we seem to be getting here seems to be very strong. And the doctor will tell you that on the people that we see, when they shoot the heroin in their arm, so often they die so quick that the needle never leaves their arm. 3 Sundays in a row during football season for the Saints, there was couples. There were couples that were in rooms. They rented rooms, and they rented rooms. I guess they were doing the heroin. They're also having sex at the same time. Both male and female shooting each other up with heroin. And I'm telling you, 3 successive weekends on Sundays during Saints games called, and the needles didn't leave those 6 people's arms. That's just that quick. I can't tell you what it does to the body. He can surely tell you, but it's just that bad. And this is a problem that seems to affect more white folks here than blacks. We see that the dealers are more black right now. The victims, I think, all maybe but 1 have been white males. We also see younger white males that are just coming out of treatment, and they're getting back on this, and they're just not used to it, and they hit it, and they're dead. So we're trying to attack the source of the heroin. You see, we have about 4 arrests for murder. We just indicted 1 today for manslaughter. It was a different situation, so we indicted this guy for manslaughter. These people are not wanting someone to die. They're shooting them up, but they're giving the heroin, and the result is that they die. It's a tragedy. We have been working with the DEA, the FBI, and the Marshal's Office at ATF. We've had last year 8 wiretap operations, which are extremely difficult to do and take a lot of time. We've been concentrating on heroin, and you will eventually hear, if the news shows it, what these people say and what they do when they're dealing heroin and pills. And you'll hear on the other end of the phone some girl telling the dealer, but you know that person has a heroin problem, they just got out of rehab, and this dealer saying, I don't give a F about what their problem is, I'm in business to make money, the hell with it, and that's going to be part of this trial. But they're dealing the heroin right and left. We're trying to catch them. They're very elusive, they're very difficult to catch. It's a really bad problem to have, and it's affecting our kids. And since it's affecting our kids and affecting our lives, we're having senators and representatives like Dan try to pass some legislation to punish the dealer more than we can. Now, you will see there's one piece of legislation where we asked that the possessor of drugs be able to go to jail for 2 years, a mandatory minimum 2 years. And a lot of people say, well, that's not the way that you reform people that are on drugs. And I agree with that and I understand that. I would like the opportunity to hold 2 years over someone who has possessed heroin and does not want to get any help, to say, get help and do what we want you to do, or you're going to face a mandatory minimum of 2 years and you're going to be in jail. Or the person that's just used the heroin and we put him in jail, he doesn't want to get treatment, well, leave him in jail until we can pull something over his head to get treatment. There are so many parents right now who would rather visit their kids in jail because they can't visit them at the morgue or cemetery. So that's our goal, is to try to really get to the source of the heroin, which is difficult. But in the meantime, try to work on the kids that are having these issues. And it's across the board of different things: white, black, male, female, rich, poor, you name it. This drug is killing our kids, and we have to do something about it. And we're here to do our job on the murders. It's going to be difficult for us to prove cases. Dan and I were talking about a little while ago. Some juries and some families, I get a lot of people calling, how can you charge that person with murder because that person didn't want someone to die, they're just a user. We need to have people wake up. I'm not trying to put people away for the rest of their life. We're just trying to get these folks off the street and address the problem. So whatever you do in this job, and Dan will tell you, you're 50% good one day and 50% bad with a different group of people. You cannot satisfy everybody all the time. But if we're able to get to explain why you did what you did, people are going to get to understand. But you can't do that in 5 seconds on Channel 9. It never happens. And so you read the little comments and we're a goat every time. Yeah. Until you really sit down with that person and say, oh, I understand, but I'm not going to call you that racist or whatever it is, that because I'm either called Hillary Clinton or Bush, whatever decision I made that day, I'm going to do. So, but I appreciate the opportunity to come here, and again, just glad that we have these hard workers in our government. Thank you all.
Clark, would you come down and tell us about, do the follow-up on that and what happened?
Sure. So I'm Beau Clark. I'm a coroner, and thank you for the kudos, Hillar. But you know, Hillar's just as hard working as we are. He's out there in the street all the time with me, taking care of business. So certainly I appreciate the relationship we have from a district attorney's perspective and the coroner, as well as our sheriff too. So basically, my job as a coroner, and a lot of people don't know what the coroner does, or they think, oh, the coroner deals with the people that have died, and certainly that is one of my jobs and one of my jurisdictions. But I have 2 other jurisdictions, and just for completeness sake, the other jurisdictions are I deal with the mentally ill. Okay, so oftentimes I see a lot of folks that do have substance abuse problems, as well as dealing with victims of sexual assault. So part of my job, though, when it deals with death, is I think my duty to you as our citizens is I need to surveil what's happening in our community. And in 2012, when I took office, we had 5 deaths that were a result of heroin toxicity. We didn't notice that was any kind of trend or anything of that nature. And then 2013 hit. And when 2013 hit, it was one heroin death after the next after the next. And pretty soon, by about mid-2013, we realized we've got an epidemic, we've got a problem. We finished 2013 with 35 heroin toxicity deaths. It's 7 times 2012's number. Okay, very tragic. And then people say, well, that's your problem. Okay, so we've got our diagnosis. We start analyzing why did this happen. And the reason it happened is twofold. Number one, the Louisiana legislature reduced mandatory sentencing for heroin distribution. We're talking about dealers, so that folks who are businessmen that happen to be drug dealers, right? They come into our community because they think, hey, you know, I might take a little chance here when I'm only going to get 5 years in jail instead of life in jail. Okay, so we create an environment that people want to come sell their product in. It just happens to be heroin. The second thing that happens is in 2010 they invent something called, Louisiana Board of Pharmacy invents something called the Prescription Monitoring Program. It's an amazing tool for doctors to use to prevent doctor shopping. Okay, so as an ER doctor, somebody comes and sees me in the ER, and they got kind of a iffy story. I'm not really sure what they're asking for, but they want narcotics. So I go pull them up in the query, and lo and behold, that day alone, they've been to 5 different pharmacies. They've seen 5 doctors. They've got now prescriptions for 120 narcotic pills. Guess what I get to do? I get to go back and tell them no, go home. Okay. So by doing so, the amount of prescription narcotics on the street goes down, therefore their price goes up, okay? So you see now the perfect storm that we've created in our community. Heroin has now come in, prescription drug price goes up, let's get heroin, it's cheaper, okay, and it's available. These are all opiates, by the way, and if you're not familiar with an opiate is a drug like hydrocodone that you might take for a toothache or a broken bone. In extreme doses, like with heroin, it causes respiratory and central nervous system depression. So basically you stop breathing and then you die. In 2014 already, and here are the numbers that are alarming, we have 8 confirmed heroin deaths already this year, with 1 still pending toxicology. So let's just, for sake of math, let's say it's 9 in the first quarter of the year. That could potentially be 36 in 2014, same number as 2013. So I think we really have to tackle this as a community, and we have to tackle it. So you, as a doctor, I just told you what the diagnosis is, and I told you how I discovered the diagnosis. So what is the treatment, right? And the treatment is twofold. You have to understand, unlike some other drug addiction problems, with heroin you have users and dealers. They're typically not the same people, okay? Some other drugs, the user and the dealer can be the same person. With heroin, they usually are very separate, okay? So what do we need to do? We need to treat the users, okay? We need to get those people into rehab, get them off of the opiates, and cure or help them with their addiction. The dealers, we need to send them to another state, okay? Because Louisiana doesn't need to be for them. And if we do that, and I think, and certainly Dan's going to talk about this probably next, if we can do that, we can uncreate the perfect storm in our community and help save lives. So I guess we'll take some questions at the end, or how did you want to do it?
Questions at the end.
Questions at the end. Okay.
Dan?
Thank you. My name is Dan Claytor. I am the senator for the 16th district, and you're in it. Where Hillar was complimenting us on how hard we work, I got to tell you, Hillar, no offense, Dr. Clark, is the hardest working guy in the room, and I say that because he beat the pants off of me when I ran for DA. So, I don't want to lose to a chump, you know. He works very hard, and every night when I go to bed, I thank Hillar for beating me in that. He's doing a great job, and it's a thankless one. And I see him on the news going out to murder scenes and all that. Dr. Clark obviously works very hard as well and makes himself available as a resource when I'm looking for some help. I've talked to him, and when I had a little radio show a while back, I had him on the show where we would talk about that, and Hillar would talk to us as well on it. Heroin, on the deaths. I have been to some of these funerals where you look in the casket and it's a nice looking young fella, perhaps in a military service uniform, and you just look out there and go, what happened? How did this happen? When I was a prosecutor back in the 80s, I worked for Mr. Harry Connick in New Orleans, and I was on the dope task force, and I prosecuted heroin when it had a life sentence. And I got a lot of life sentences against these heroin dealers, and it was actually pretty easy. We would get to the end where I'm asking for the jury to find somebody guilty. It was an automatic life sentence, and I told the jury about it right from the beginning. This is going to be a life sentence if you convict this person. And when we got to the end, what I would pose to them is, I know you're thinking whether or not is it fair to give this heroin dealer a life sentence. Did not the heroin dealer give these purchasers, these customers, a life sentence, and in many cases, a death sentence?
Right.
They never had any problem with it. They would hook them up, and they were gone. And this is in Orleans Parish, where people kind of go, oh man, they're crazy down there. They're not crazy. You know, they don't want crime in their streets. And so I, as I say, hooked up a lot of people with life sentences. And I was not satisfied. I wasn't a member of the legislature when they turned the sentence back and said, no, these are just misunderstood people. Anybody ever have to kill a snake in your yard?
Oh, yeah.
Did you go out there and chop him from the bottom toward the head, or did you start at the head?
The head.
You kill a snake by taking the head off. And what I would like to do is give the courts the opportunity to take the head of the snake off, which is very simple: extend the potential sentence from 50 years to 99. I'm not asking to change it back to a life sentence. I don't want to push that on my liberal friends that think that's too difficult of a sentence for people to bear. I'm not making it mandatory either. I want the judge that you all elect to have the discretion if he says, hey, 99 years is appropriate for you to hook them up, as we say. So my bill's real simple. I don't disagree with any of the things that Hillar said, but my bill simply says we're going to increase the potential penalty from 50 years to 99, which is the same thing as armed robbery. If we get armed robbed on the way to our car, which wouldn't happen in this beautiful, nice shopping center where Claitor's bookstore is right there. But if it happened somewhere else, they would be looking at a potential 99-year sentence. And so it just seems reasonable to me. Common folks and smart folks know that you kill a snake by taking the head off, and this is an opportunity to do that. So one other thing that we didn't really talk about, and Doc will be able to help me on this, and Hillar will be able to help me on this. One bill that's coming through the legislature is being framed as a good citizen, good Samaritan bill. And I don't know if you've seen this, but not that Lou is, but Lou and I are sharing dope, and I overdose. Lou can pick up the phone and say, Dan's overdosed, and she doesn't have to bear any responsibility of having been my dope pal. But she gets a get out of jail free card, and that they're not going to prosecute her, or when they come in and find heroin all over the place, we're going to say, Lou, you did a good thing by calling in and doing this with Dan. I appreciate the nice intention, but what happens is I'm a bad guy. Lou is perhaps not such a bad guy. And Hillar pulls up out front in his cruiser. I see that out there. I've got heroin every place. I say, Lou, just say you had an overdose. Pick up the phone, say I'm reporting an overdose, and I got a get out of jail free card. It's not a system that is manageable. I like my friends that want to save everybody, and that's great, but that's an unworkable framework. And what do they call that drug, Doc?
Naloxone or Narcan.
So they have here's our chemist and our doctor, and I'm for the part of the bill that says that we can allow EMS and firemen and policemen and whoever else to administer that drug and not have any liability if they don't get it right. But I'm not for the part that gives the other guys a get out of jail card. So there are a lot of bills where people are dealing with this issue. I don't think anybody really cares who gets the credit for passing these. I just want to see the penalty extended. I've got folks that I'm working with that are trying to get in the same place. Or every now and then you'll get the impression that we're a bunch of wild Indians down there, but for the most part we're trying to be pretty thoughtful and get to where we need to be, and I find that there are a lot of people united on this issue. So I appreciate the opportunity to come out here. I very much appreciate to have public officials that care about it and are out front dealing with it. So I guess we're ready for questions.
Thank you. I'm going to lead off asking bill numbers. Your bill is?
I am no good at bill numbers. I can tell you bill number 1 is my 2-lane bill. I can't tell you the numbers.
I think it's SB 887.
I can tell you what they do, but I can't tell you the
About
numbers.
6 bills, we can get you the numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, what you do is you go to the legislative website, and then you have a bill search, and you put in a text, heroin, boom.
Yeah, drug yards come out, that's the antidote?
Yeah, Narcan. So the way Narcan works is it's an opiate antagonist. So if you have opiates in your system, it actually reverses the effects of the opiate immediately. So it's really not a drug that's abused, because most people that have opiates want the euphoric feeling, and this absolutely takes it away. And if you don't have any opiates in your system, it does nothing to you.
So what would be the key word for that bill?
That one, the number on that one is House Bill 611.
611.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that's Marino is the R.
Marino.
Marino, okay.
I have a question. What, you guys have spoken to the state numbers. What is the national trend?
Don't know, but it's up there all the way. The problem, the numbers I gave you were East Baton Rouge Parish, and not all corners keep the same types of numbers that I do. So I think it's really difficult to say what our state looks like. Now, I can probably tell you Jefferson Parish looks like us, Caddo, a little bit less than us. So some of the bigger parishes, but we know it's everywhere. Nationally, I mean, Hoffman died, the actor, so this is rampant all over. It's epidemic.
The crime lab shows from Jefferson Parish, New Orleans, and Baton Rouge, that's where the majority have increased by about the same, like 500%. Eric Holder, who is, in my opinion, liberal, says that this is an extremely bad problem. We need help. And nationwide, he reports that it's increased 200% nationwide. So it's a problem nationwide, not just in Louisiana. Ours is a lot more, I think, for the reasons the doctor said.
And just to throw in something that Hillar was talking about earlier on the mandatory minimum sentence, the DA in whatever parish is the guy that decides who, what, and where, who, what, and what will be prosecuted. So part of his discretion is he can put somebody in a diversion program if he decides that that's the appropriate thing. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've seen this problem for a long time, and we all know, everybody in this room, that people won't seek the treatment they need until they're rock bottom on the deal. And rock bottom is, by most people's standards, looking at a 2-year sentence or jail time. So I'm not completely sold on the 2-year minimum idea, but Hillar's getting me there.
But what I would do is the 2-year minimum on possession of heroin. When that person shows me, look, I'm going to do what I have to do, then what I do is I make the charge in attempt possession of heroin. 2 years is out the window. So he can get probation, he can get treatment, or I put him in drug court. There's ways I get around that minimum. I want it there to put someone in jail to make sure I can convince them, hit right bottom, and I'm going to get some treatment. Otherwise, if you don't want, I'm going to get you off the street for at least 2 years, where I know you're going to be, for the most part, sober. And let's get it. I'm going to only use that minimum for that rare occasion where someone says, I don't want any help at all.
And on the debate side of things, Hillar, I trust, but then when we're doing state law, I got to think about, well, how's the DA going to handle it in Jefferson? How's the guy going to handle it in Caddo?
The small parishes will put you away for 2 years.
But so that's why we have the debate, and that's the good thing about it all.
And handling the dealers, and, handling the people who are arguing with you about that. I'm a nurse anesthetist, so I understand opiates. These people know that heroin is not something a physician writes a prescription for, and it's not a gradual addiction. Once you distribute heroin, you're addicted the first time.
Without a doubt.
And that the public needs to understand that. This isn't like a pain medicine that a doctor writes a prescription for and there's a gradual tolerance.
Is that the
These
same
people
thing
need
as
to be
crack?
dealt with.
Crack the same way?
No.
I mean, that's not the same thing, but I mean, don't they say that once you try crack, you're addicted also? Or is that?
You can, yes. I mean, anytime you have any of the difference though, crack is cocaine, okay?
Oh, that's right.
So, all the drugs you've heard, Schedule 1 this, Schedule 1 that, this is all legal terms, and these guys are the attorneys so they can tell you more about it, but I'll give you my doctor's simple terms that I understand. Schedule 1 narcotics are anything that has no medicinal purpose whatsoever. Heroin is a Schedule 1 narcotic. We don't use that in medicine for anything, okay? Believe it or not, cocaine is a Schedule 2 narcotic, and it does have some medicinal purposes. They do use it in ENT surgery to make sure your blood vessels constrict. There's not a lot of blood when they do the surgery. So you put it in those terms. However, when you're talking about street drugs, and this is what's important to remember, everything that we give you pharmaceutically goes through the Food and Drug Administration, right? So if you take a 10 milligram hydrocodone pill, which is a pain pill, it has 10 milligrams of hydrocodone in it. It's been proven to. When you take 5 grams of heroin, you have no idea what you get. It could be 1% heroin, 100% heroin, and that's what you're seeing. Very high potency heroin that either gets you incredibly hooked or addicted or dead.
One or the other, dead or addicted.
I'm going to piggyback on that because I heard that there is a new strain of heroin out here in Baton Rouge right now that really
We have not, though. I think what you're referring to is that heroin that they're actually cutting with another drug called fentanyl. We have not seen any cases of folks that have died as a result of that. Doesn't mean it's not here in our community. I've not seen that. Jefferson Parish, I believe, has 3 or 4 of those cases confirmed by toxicology. Fentanyl is it's a synthetic opiate that is used prescriptively, but it's very powerful. Fentanyl is 10 to 20 times more powerful than morphine. So you're adding opiate on top of opiate on top of opiate, and that's bad chemistry.
So these kids who have been dried out and they're coming off the rehab and everything, they are particularly vulnerable to.
So the way it works, and I can get scientific if that's okay with you guys, you have something in your body called a mu receptor, and it's your pain receptor. And the pain medicine attaches to the mu receptor, dulls the pain, okay? However, the mu receptor gets tolerance associated with it. So soon it was a 5 milligram type of more opiate that was needed, then it's a 10 milligram. And the more you use it, the more you have to attach to it to get the same sensation. So that's why you see things start ratcheting up. Then somebody goes, I need help, and they go into rehab. Well, what happens in rehab? They don't get any opiate, and their mu receptor resets to 0, and the first thing they do the day they get out is they go shoot the same amount of heroin they shot before they went in, and they die because they have a massive overdose. It's too much for their system.
What is set up that we can put the drug rehab? Are there going to be too many kids that get put into drug rehab? I mean, what's out there that can help us wean these kids off of this stuff?
One thing that Hillar will tell you about is the drug court.
The drug court is very effective.
Yeah.
Heroin is somewhat new for the drug court, and I think the treatment will probably be more intense and longer acting, but in the drug court, you have to plead guilty to a felony offense. And the judge gives you 7 years in the Department of Corrections, and he holds it over your head. Then you go to drug court. Judge Tony Marabella is a very good judge. He's our drug court judge. And if you mess up, he's going to put you in jail. Put you in jail for 30 days till you come out again, and he's going to try you again. He knows you're going to mess up time to time, but there's treatment options there. There's job, and they watch you. You come to court every Thursday. It's a very effective program here. And it all is based on the judge. If the judge is believable and the people trust him, then it works. So we have a really good success rate here. So that's something that we do. And if they don't take the medicine, then they get 7 years in the Department of Corrections. So it's very effective. There's a lot of private places that the doc can tell you about, extremely expensive. Dan was telling you about a soldier in a casket at St. Aloysius Church right across the way, who's that boy went to school with our 2 kids, our kids are the same age, and he's a Marine, and he overdosed on heroin. Excuse me, another young kid who went to school with Dan and I's other children, same thing, it just come in this repetitively, back and forth. Parents are exhausted, all of their money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if they really don't want the treatment and want to get right, it's not going to happen. But heroin is just such a different drug. The treatment is tough.
As the stats show you, we're not going to save everybody. The answer is, as we were pointing out earlier, drive them out of town. I don't want to drive them just to Texas or the next state. I'm not a believer in the ant pile theory and put the poison in and send them next door. I'd rather light them up and put them away and we not see them again. But as a practical matter, when we put the sign up that not open for business, it'll go somewhere else in time. But
it's business. These people, it's a business. These are very good businessmen. They put their minds down to a real business. They can be very good at what they do. The problem is dealers deal 1,600 times before they get caught, and then that's their first offense. And they want you to divert the first offender, which we understand. Then go out back and deal again. It's another 1,600 times. A lot of the drugs get out the way, and you never catch that person because 1,600 is the national average.
I was wondering, how does the 99-year sentence, in the United States, do you have any idea how many states have that?
probably not many, and not many didn't have life. And I'm not a believer in let's look at Texas or Arkansas or Alabama and let's mimic them on everything that we do. So I am a believer in we have too many people in the Department of Corrections, and this is a policy question. Our discretionary or our budget gets spent on healthcare, education, the Department of Corrections, and we have others. And so every dollar that we save in not spending on the Department of Corrections, somebody that we can put on probation for $2.40 a day compared to incarcerated at $28 a day or more, we're doing a good thing. And they got programs like Judge Marabella's where it's intense. It's not, hey, you know, let's go play basketball. It's an intense program. So
What about money spent on preventative to get the word out to kids that one time on heroin and, you know, you're
Yeah.
done, like going to schools and teach them things
I
like
mean, I think they're trying, you have to do that along with everything else. I agree with Dan. I think that if we had to start all over again, I'd like to put all of my money in education, all of it. And then we won't worry about these other problems. Right now is we can't really do that because we have serious problems right now. We have to deal with some bad guys, but we also have to start putting money in education. We don't have any more parents. Parents are gone. And people that, where they need parents, we don't have them. Well, they maybe have one parent, they have a grandparent. And that's where it starts. It starts right there in the home, and we can't really fix it. At the end, we can put some Band-Aids on it, but that's a significant issue. I'm also with Dan, you know, giving out really big sentences, sound real good. A lot of people want them. What I want to do on the guys that are really violent, I want them in jail past their killing age. And what is the killing age? It's 35 to 45 years old. So my people that are killing each other are 13 to 21. I want them in jail till they're 35 or 45. When they get out, they're probably not going to kill anybody else. But I need them in jail for that period of time. It's a long period of time. But 99, probably not going to do good in the last 50 years. And we're going to be paying for that money. So I'd like to keep them off the street, away from a gun, until that age.
as a practical matter, following up on that, if in Louisiana, if you get a 99-year sentence, more likely than not, you're going to do 33. Puts them right at about the age that Hillar's talking about in the metaphor or analogy that I use. Big scary dog that's young that comes off the porch and has good teeth is going to bite you and do some damage. But when that dog is a little bit older, they can just gum you a little bit.